Good evening. Hope all of you are well. Today, Maseches Taanis Daf Chaf Daled. Another day of Agadatas, as will be the case tomorrow. Tonight, of course, Daf Yomi right now. Tomorrow night, no Daf Yomi. Tomorrow's Daf will be in the morning after the early Shacharis. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Yeah. So 6:30 Shacharis, 7:05, something like that. Daf Yomi in the morning. No Daf Yomi tomorrow night. And then, as mentioned, I'm out for Shabbos, so I will overteach on Wednesday night and Thursday night, and we'll do one blot on Friday morning, and that will cover the weekend, and we'll be back together in person on Sunday. We are on the last line of Chav Gimel Amud Beis, and the Gemara opens with a story. Rabbi Yossi bar Avin hab'shchiach kamed Rabbi Yossi d'min Yokras. Rabbi Yossi bar Avin was initially in shiur. He was a Talmud of Rabbi Yossi d'min Yokras. Rashi says d'min Yokras. Yokras was the name of a place. Shavke. Rabbi Yossi bar Avin left this Rebbe of Rabbi Yossi d'min Yokras. We'll see why. And lekame de Rav Ashi, he switched shiurim. Sometimes it gets political in yeshivas. He switched Batei Medrash entirely. He went to go learn under Rav Ashi. Top of Chav Daled Amud Aleph. Yom Echad, one day, Shamed the Kagaris, he heard the following being taught. Rashi posits that there's two different ways to understand this about who was the one who was speaking. The simple way to understand it is that the Rebbe was talking, and what did he teach? Amar Shmuel, he quoted an earlier generation of Amoraim, Hashola Dag Min Hayam b'Shabbos, that someone who pulls a fish out of water on Shabbos. So Kevan Sheyabesh Bo Kesela, once there is a dry patch on the fish that is the size of a sela, a size of one of their coins, Chayev, you're Chayev for killing that animal. It's a halakhic assumption that once the skin dries to a certain amount, once the body dries to a certain amount, that even if you put it back in water, it won't live anymore. So Amar Le, the Talmud says back to the Rebbe, the new Talmud, Rabbi Yossi bar Avin says to Rav Ashi, why don't you say it has to be in a spot where there are scales, not any spot on the body, not on the tail, it has to be where there are scales. So the Rebbe Rav Ashi says, Amar Le, velo savar larmar, do you not hold of the opinion, Dehahi Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Avin Amra? Don't you hold that that's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Avin? He says, that's me. That's me you're talking about. I hold of me, sure. I'm the one who said it, and I'm the one who's adding it to your shiur. So he says, didn't you used to learn in the shiur of Rav Yossi d'min Yokras? He said, I used to. I used to. So Rav Ashi says back to Rav Yossi bar Avin, why did you leave? Well, my time of why did you leave your Rebbe and come to my shiur? So Rav Yossi bar Avin says, if he's not going to have Rachmanis on his own daughter and on his own son, then how can he raise me with Rachmanis? If I'm his Talmud and he's not willing to raise his own kids with Rachmanis, I'm still one step more removed than his children. So Berei Maihi, the first of the middle width lines of the Gemara. What? Berei Maihave, the Gemara says, what was the case where he didn't have mercy on his son? So it says the Gemara, Yom Achad Habu Agrele Agire B'Dabra. Once there was a time where Rabbi Yossi d'min Yokras, he had hired workers in the field. Nagalahu, he was late in bringing them. Velo Aisi Luhurifta, he was late in bringing them food for their breakfast, whatever it was. So Amrulay, the worker, said to his son, Lebrei Kafinan, we're starving. So Yasve Tuse Ta'inta, they were sitting under a fig tree. Amar. And the son clearly had the power of prayer. This is a lot of confidence. Amar, he says 3 lines into the wide lines, 10, 12 lines down, Chav Daled Amud Aleph. Amar, te'ena, hotzi perosayich, v'yochlu po'alei abba. Fig tree, bring forth your fruit so that the workers of my father can eat. And magically, or I should say, maybe this is how prayer should work, is afiku v'achlu. Out came the figs and everybody had lunch. Meanwhile, asa abuha. Then all of a sudden, Rabbi Yossi d'min Yokras shows up. Amar lehu lo tinkitu b'da'ataychu. Don't be upset in your thinking. Dehai dinaghana. The fact that I was late, I'm mitzvah tarchan. I was working on a mitzvah. This was the earliest that I was able to make it. Amrulay, the worker said back to Rabbi Yossi d'min Yokras, Rachmana lisba'ech ki hechi de'isba'an berach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should let you be satiated in the same way that your son satiated all of us. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm the one who brought the food. My son doesn't have the food. Amar lehu mehecha. Where did you get food from? Amru, they told the story. Hachi v'hachi hayamaisa habamaisa. This is exactly what happened. Your son davened, and all of a sudden the figs came pouring off the tree. Amar lo, he says to his son, father to son, you pushed the Kadosh Baruch Hu to do something outside of the rules of nature, and therefore you, he said to his son, will die before your time. Wow. So this is what he was concerned about. I'm going to learn in this guy's shiur. He doesn't have Rachmanas on his own kid. His own kid did a nace. Yes, he broke the rules. We don't try to twist a Kadosh Baruch Hu's arm unless it's like a nace tzara. But just because these guys are hungry and the delivery truck's 10 minutes late, you're going to call for a miracle. That's not right. That's not the way to do things. What about his daughter? Because it had said that he was not sensitive to his daughter or wasn't chayis. He didn't have Rachmanas on his daughter or son birote maihi. What's the story with his daughter? So, Havile Barata Bailas Yofi, he had a daughter who was very beautiful. Yom Echad, one day, Chazi Lehahu Gavra, he saw there was a particular man, Dahava Karya Behutza. He made a cut in the fencing, Vikachazila. This is not good. He cuts a hole in the fence and he's looking through the fence to see how beautiful she is. Amar Lo, my high, Rav Yossi, Dimin Yokras walks over him, he's like, what are you doing? Why'd you cut a hole in my fence? And what are you doing? Amar Le, Rebbe, my master, if I'm not able to marry her, I should at least be able to look at her. What an unbelievably difficult Gemara to understand. He said it as though it was normal. It's not normal, but he said it as though it was normal. Amar Le, Amar La. So the father doesn't look at the peeping Tom and say, get out of here. The father looks at the daughter, Amar La, and says, Biti, my daughter, you're making it difficult for the creations of Hashem. Shuvi la'afrayich, you need to go back to the dust of the earth. The Maharsha writes on this Gemara that this was, of course, not the correct hashkafa. That's not the way to do things. We don't. That's not the right thing to do. But what does the Maharsha say? Maharsha writes that he should have davened that his daughter should become ugly. Chazir l'shacharisa, like we saw the other day. That's what we saw. That's what the Gemara says. It quotes that earlier Gemara. That's what the Maharsha writes. Very difficult Gemara to understand, but it does explain, therefore, why he kind of tiptoed out of the back of the class and he's like, I think I'm going to learn by Rav Ashi. This is a little too much for me. Davening that his own children should not geshmak. About a third of the way down Chavdal and Amud Aleph says the Gemara in regards to Rabbi Yossi ben Yikras, Dimin Yikras, Hav Yelehahu Chamra. He had a particular chamor, a donkey. Kedahavu Agre la Kol Yoma. He was his Uber. He rented it out all day, and he would get it back at the end of the day, or at night. Hava Meshadra la Agra Agaba. The people who borrowed it would send the animal back with money on its back, with money on the animal. And the animal knew where it was going. It came home all on its own with all the right amount of money. And in fact, this animal was quite smart. V'itafula, if there was too much money, batsrila, or if there was too little money, lo asya, the animal would not move. So the borrowers always knew that they had to put the exact right amount of money that was due. It's a cool system. Yeah. Who can train the donkey? It's a very cool system. Yom Echad, one day. What am I supposed to say? That's Gibaldic. How far is the microphone from? I'm just gonna continue. That was Gibaldic. You can edit it later. There's no editing. I will not edit. Yom Echad, one day, Inshu Zuga the Sandle Allah. One day after he had lent out this animal, someone forgot a pair of sandals on the animal below Azla, and the animal did not leave mina until they took the sandals off. And then that was really funny. and then the Hadar Azla, and they took off the sandals, and then the donkey knew that it had the right amount of money on it, and then all of a sudden it went home. Okay, says the Gemara, third of the way down. Elazar ish birta. Every time he saw the Gabayit Tzedakah, the Gabayit Tzedakah would run away from him. They'd run away from him. He didn't know how to not give. Could you imagine? Usually it's not like that. Usually when you have someone who's writing out checks, everybody knocks on their door. Here, these tzedakah collectors were very sensitive. They didn't want to over collect, and they knew that every time they saw this person, every time they saw Lazar Ishbirta, that he would dump all of the money from his wallet into their pushka. It was just not the right move. Yom Echad, one day they were trying to escape him. So this person, Lazar Ishbirta, went to the market to buy something for his daughter. The tzedakah collectors saw him and they quickly turned around and ran the other direction, but not before he caught their eyes. So then Elazar chased after them and said, Amar lahu, ishbatichu b'may askisu. I want you to promise me right now that you're going to tell me the truth. What are you collecting for? Amrullah, they said to him, what can we do? We're dealing with some children who have been orphaned. Amar lehen ha'avoda, I mean the language of Shavua, shehein kodman libiti. This is more important than the gift that I plan to buy for my daughter. Shakal kol dehaba behade v'yahav lahu. He dumped his whole wallet, his whole sack of coins into their pushka, and pashle chad zuza. He only had one little coin left. Zavan lechite, and whatever he was able to buy in regards to grain, that's what he bought with this little thing of chite. The asik shaje be'akalba. When he got home, he put it into his storage house. Asoi debisu, his wife showed up on the scene after he got home. Amr la librate, and he said to Elazar's daughter, the wife said to the daughter, "My aisiavu, what did your father bring from the marketplace?" Amr la, I don't know, but kol ma da'isi be'akalba shadise. Everything that he did bring home, he threw into the storage house. So asil miftach bava de'akalba. So the wife of Elazar Ishbarta, went to go and try and open the storage house and see what is it that he brought home. So Chazas, what she was able to see, Chazas Akalba, the Malyachite was totally full with grain. The Kanafka B'tzinur, the Dasha, in fact, it went over the threshold of the door, so much so that it made it difficult to open the door. She couldn't open the door because of how much wheat there was. So Azla Barate Lebe Medrasha, the daughter of Elazar, went to the base medrash to say what beautiful miracle had happened. They didn't have that much in there. He gave away all of his money to tzedakah. So Amra Le, she says to her father, Bo re'eh ma asalach ohavcha. Like, see what the one who loves you did. That what Hashem did for you. Amar Le ha'avoda, again, a language of Shua. Harein hektish alayich. This is considered hektish as it relates to you. You're not allowed to benefit from it. Ve'ein lecha bohen ela ke'echad me'ani Yisrael. Only you can only eat from it as though a poor person would eat from it. Back to some stories about the rain. Rabbi Yehuda Nisiya, the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Gazar Ta'anisa, Bayrach Mevala Asa Mitra. So yeah, he made a fast day, there was no rain, and then he davened for rain, and the rain didn't show up. Omar, Kama Ika Mishmuel Haramati Lihuda ben Gamliel. Look at the Yerida Sadoros from Shmuel, who was able to control the rain, to Yehuda ben Gamliel, who was able to control the rain. And just a couple of generations later, I'm a disaster, quote unquote. I can't do anything. Oy lo lador shekei niska, oy lo lamisha also b'yom avkach. How terrible it is for such a generation, and how awful it is to live in these times when even our prayers cannot control the weather. Right when he started to feel a chalisha sadas, that's when the rain shows up. So a lot of the Balei Musar pick up on this idea that in order for your prayers to be niskabel, you have to have chalisha sadas. It has to be that you're really broken and it's really hard for you, that it's not working. We'll see this a few times today. Says the Gemara, another story, the Beinasiya Gazar Taanis. So the house of the Nasi made a Taanis. However, velo od inuhu le Rabbi Yochanan and the Reish Lakish, but they didn't publicize it well. Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish didn't hear about it at night. Litzafra, in the morning, odi unu, somebody told them at Shachris, Amalei Reish Lakish, the Rabbi Yochanan, what should we do? Halo kabilna alan me'orta. Normally, when we accept a fast upon ourselves, we accept upon ourselves the night before, and then the whole next day is a fast. But here, we didn't even know about it. Amarle, Rabbi Yochanan says back to Reish Lakish, anan basraihu gurarinan. We can follow the tzibor. It's as though they accepted it upon the tzibor for them. So even if you don't know, but it happens to be a Taanis tzibor, and you didn't say the tefillah beforehand, you're still allowed to fast. It's appropriate to fast. The Beinasiya Gazar Taanis Avla Asimitra. Another story with the Beinasiya, where the house of the Nasi made a Taanis and the rain did not come. Tana Lahu Oshia Zeira Dimin Chavraya, and he Oshaya Zeira Dimin Chavraya quotes a pasuk. V'haya im. The pasuk reads, "V'haya im me'enei ha'eda ne'esa lishkaga masha lekala shehi bevei." He gives a musar that the nasi was not able to generate rain. He gives an example of a kala shehi bevei savia, a woman who's about to be married. She's eligible for marriage, and she's in her father's house. Kolzman she'enei hayafos, when you can see on her face, you can see her eyes, you can get a good feel for who a person is when their eyes are pleasant eyes. So then ein kol gufa tzricha b'dika. You don't have to analyze every part of her life. However, trutos, if her eyes are very unpleasant, then kol gufa tzricha b'dika. Then you have to look into it more. So this was actually a musar. Look at this, the nasi, the einayim, the eyes, they weren't able to bring about rain. We have to look into them and see what's wrong with them. So he was giving a little bit of musar to the Beinasiya. And that did not go over well. 2 lines before the very wide lines, 3/4 of the way down. So asu avde, some servants of the Beinasi came around, and they tied some type of rope around the person's neck, and they were bothering him, they were hurting him. So Amrulei b'nei Maseh, the people of the city said to him, Shavke, leave him alone. He also bothers us. But one thing we know about this person, first long line, you're right. He is saying things that are not nice, but he is very much l'shem shamayim. Therefore, we don't say anything to him. We leave him be. He's usually right, and he usually is l'shem shamayim. Atun nami, you as well, shavkuhu, you should leave him alone. Another story. Rabbi Gazer Taanis v'lo asa mitra, going earlier in time, because we saw that this was Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya, which was his grandson. So Rabbi himself, he was Gozer Taanis v'lo asa mitra, and what did he do? Nachis kamei ilfa v'amar l'Rav Ilfi. He went either before Ilfa or Rav Ilfi. And then what happened? What did Rav Ilfi do? Amar Mashiv Ruach. As he was davening, he said the two words Mashiv Ruach. Instantly, v'nasa zika. All of a sudden, the wind started blowing. Next two words, Morida Geshem, the Asa Mitra. That's like pushing a button. I mean, that is immediate. Mashiv Ruach and wind, Morida Geshem and rain. Unbelievable. Amar Le, my ovdach. What is it that you did? That's so. How did you earn? What did you do to earn such a close relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu? 10 lines from the bottom. Amar Le, Dairana, I live bekusta dechika. I live in a community that's extremely poor. The les beichama lekidusha ve'avdalta. I don't even have wine for kiddush and havdalah. However, tarachna ve'asina chama lekidusha ve'avdalta. I worked very hard to bring wine for kiddush and for havdalah. Umafikna lehu yedei chovsaihu. And I was able to be motzi other people. Of course, we know it can be motzi other people with these things, and therefore that was the big schos that he got that made it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was willing to listen to him on a dime. Rav ikla lehahu asra. Rav went to a certain place. There was no rain. Gazer Taanis v'lo asa mitra, and there was no rain. So he davened, and it didn't work. Nachis kamei shlicha detzibor. We went over to the shliach tzibor, and when the shliach tzibor davened, just like we saw a generation earlier with Rabbi Amar Mashiv Ruach, when he said the words Mashiv Ruach v'noshav zika, the wind started to blow. Amar Morida Geshem asa mitra, and then when he said Morida Geshem, then the water started to fall. Amar Le, Rav said to him, my ovdach, what is it that you do? Amar Le, Mikri dardiki ana. I'm a reader to children. I'm a Rebbe. I teach in the Chadorim. Umakrina livnei aniye kivnei asire. I teach the poor children the same exact way that I teach the rich children. No difference. Might be that there's someone who's writing a bigger check to the school. It doesn't matter to me. These kids are getting the same exact chinuch. Anyone who's not able to afford to pay, I don't take any coins from them at all. And as well, I have a little pond of dekavre. Kavre are a certain type of fish. Any children who's negligent, they started to ditch morning seder. I can bribe them with having a tasty fish from the pond, no problem. And I make it all work out for them. And I also I can convince them till they come back to the base medrash and learn. Especially with little kids, that when a kid is pushing at young ages, pushing away from you, it's not because they have philosophical challenges. They're kids. They don't have philosophical challenges. They need love. They need affection. They need to feel the warmth. And yes, bribery goes a long way. Make sure that they feel motivated. Great. These things work very well. 4 lines from the bottom. Chav Dalet Amud Aleph. Rav Nachman Gozer Tanisa. Rav Nachman was Gozer Taanis. Barach Mevalos Mitra, and the rain did not come. Amar Shaklu Ala Nachman. We should remove him from his post. Chavutu min Guda le'ara. We should take him from the Guda, which technically means a wall, from Gud Asik and Gud Achi, same word, and we should put him on the ground. He used to be in charge, but his prayers aren't that powerful. Let's demote him, says the Gemara, Chalash Daite. Right then, when he heard that, he was Chalash Daite, and as mentioned, Chalish Asadas and Tefillah can often lead to the right results. Asamitra, all of a sudden, the rain started coming down. Rava, should be Rava. Rava Gozer Taanis, he was Gozer Taanis. Boirachme v'lasamitra, him too, the rain didn't come. Amorle, they said to him, why is it that your davening doesn't work, but v'ha Rabbi Yehuda ki have a Gozer Taanis asamitra? Why is Rabbi Yehuda better? Why is Rabbi Yehuda any better than you? Amar lahu, my yavid. I don't know how to answer that question, says the Gemara. Imi shum tenuye, if you want to talk about learning, anana definan minayu. We learn better than he did. We learn more than he did for sure. Just timing. Rava was 4th century. Rabbi Yehuda was 2nd century. This Rabbi Yehuda was the one who was a Talmud of both Rav and Shmuel. So we're asking a question to Rava about Rabbi Yehuda. So Rava says, We learned better than they did. When it came to the years of Rabbi Yehuda, Kol Tenuye, all of their learning, top of Chav Daled Amud Beis, was B'nezik and Hava. They only learned one Seder. The Anan Kamas Ninin B'Shisa Sedarim. We were pounding the learning. Unbelievable. They were learning all Shisha Sedarim of the Mishnayos. They knew everything. When Rabbi Yehuda was learning Uktzin, he would learn one of the sugyas, Ha'isha shekoveshes yerek b'kedera. A woman is crushing, she's crushing vegetables in a kedera. And we know the uktzin is about the oket, it's about the stem. What's the halachic status of the stem? The Amri La. Some say that maybe it was another sugya. He was learning zaysim shekavshan b'tarfein tehorim. Whatever the sugya was, Amar, in that case, Rabbi Yehuda said, Havoy de Rav Shmuel kachazina hacha. I'm seeing all the statements of Rav and Shmuel. He was a Talmud of both of them, Rabbi Yehuda. He says in Gemara, Ve'anan, but Rava says, I don't understand. But for us, Ve'anan, ki masnin and be'oktin, tleis ar mesifta. We had 13 yeshivas focusing on this. Forget about one base measures with one Rebbe, talking about Rav and Shmuel. We had 13 yeshivas focusing on this. Yet, says Rava, I understand your question, because how did it really play out? Rabbi Yehuda, when it comes to Rabbi Yehuda, when he took off even one shoe, the rain would start to fall. And us, we can scream all day, it won't matter. Nobody's paying attention to us. Nobody listens to our tefillos. This is a difference of 50 years, not even, between the Zamorim. Rabbi Yehuda's second generation is probably a 40 year difference, really not that much time. And even there, the Yeridas Hadoros to Rava at least was palpable. So if it's in regards to the learning, I don't know how to explain it. We've had more learning than he did. If you want to say it's about our behavior, if somebody sees we're doing something wrong, please tell me. I'm not as good as them. Our generation is just not as good. I'm a tzaddik. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm a good person, but I'm just not as great as the previous generation. Allah has kama v'kama pi elef alfei alaf. And what about our generation? How do we hold up even to 100 years ago? And the Chavetz Chaim would say, how did he hold up to the Shulchan Aruch and the Shulchan Aruch to the Rishonim v'chulei? It's just hard to fathom how great these people were. It's hard to fathom. So this is what Rava says. But let's tell another story about Rabbi Yehuda, about the shoe. Rabbi Yehuda says the Gemara 12 lines down or so. He saw that there were two people who were splitting a piece of bread. Omar seems that everybody has what they need. All of a sudden, he looked out over the landscape and have a kafna. Instantly, drought. We have what we need. Drought started right away. Amrulei Rabban on the Rav Kahana Bered Rav Nechunya Shamei. He was the servant of Rav Kahana Bered Rav Nechunya was the servant of Rabbi Yehuda, and they said, Marj shliach kameh, you're always with him. Ne'aseh, make it happen, delepuk bepischa desamach l'shuka, that he leaves his house and can see the marketplace. So Asya, he did that, v'nafak l'shuka, and chazuk knufya, he saw that things were very tight. There wasn't a lot of food in the marketplace, cobwebs. Amar lehu, maihi, what's going on over there? What's the whole commotion? So Amruleh, there's a few people who found a box of foods, akusva to tamre kaime to kamizdavan. Someone found one box of dates. What does that show you? That there isn't a lot of food. Everybody's fighting over one thing. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Shema mina kafna be'alma. It seems to be that there's some type of starvation, a famine happening in the world. Amar le l'shamesh shlofli misane. Take off one of my shoes. Shalaf lechad misana ve'asa mitra. Instantly, when he did that, it started to rain. Kimata lemishlava when the person who was about to take off his second shoe, Rav Kahana was about to take off Rabbi Yehuda's second shoe. Asa Eliyahu Hanavi shows up. The Amar Le, he says, no, you cannot take off your second shoe. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you thought it was powerful enough when you took off one shoe to make it rain. Ishalaft acharina, if you take off your second shoe, machrivna la'alma, the whole world will drown. It will be destroyed by the amount of water. He wasn't even talking. He was simply taking off his shoe. What's the link between taking off your shoe and raining? I don't know. Something to look in.
Part of the veils of
what's that to do?
When they would get into
but what does that have to do with?
When they were getting to later fast for rain, they would take off their shoes. That was him beginning the process to go ahead and fast, I think. You were taking off your shoes.
Well, that wasn't this has to be a specific fast then, because it wasn't all fast that we did that. The later stages of fast, the last 7, whatever.
I'm not trying to jump ahead, or
it just seems unique the way things played out. It wasn't he wasn't already barefoot. No, but he wasn't already barefoot, which would have implied the day was already a day. He was intervening almost. I don't know. It's very unique. I hear what you're saying, but if that would have happened, he would have been shoeless already. I'm just saying, when you look at the flow of the Gemara, shoeless, yeah. I don't think he had the same results though. Still not. Almost halfway down, third of the way down. Amar Rav Mari Barad Bas Shmuel. I was on the river banks of the river Papa. I saw that there were angels to Idmu Malchi that were similar to sailors. They took sand, and they would fill up the boats, and miraculously, it all turned into the finest of flowers. People heard the news. It was the new buzz, and everyone showed up with their checkbooks ready to buy this new perfect flower. Amar lahu, and he says you should not buy it. Amar lahu mehalo tizbenun, you should not buy this. We don't rely on these miracles even after they've happened. We don't do that. Lamachar, the next day, Asyan Arbe, many boats showed up, the chite de parzina, a certain type of grind of flour, and everyone was able to buy. 3-4 lines before the Y lines. Rava Ikla leHagronya. He went to the city of Hagronya. Gazar Taanis of Lo Asamitra. He went there and he went into Taanis, and the rain didn't come. Amar Lahu Bisu Kule Alma Betani Saichu Lamachar. Everybody keep in your fast until the morning. Amar Lahu, in the morning, Mi'ika dechaza chil malema. Anyone who had a dream, please say. Amar Lahu, last short line. Amar Lahu, Rabbi Lazar meHagronya. He raised his hand and said, Lididi, Akirian bechalmi. I was calling out the following in my dream. Shalom tav, lerav tav, me ribon tav, demituve metiv le'ame. So shalom tav, there should be good peace. Lerav tav, for a good leader, a reference to Rava. Me ribon tav, from a great master, referencing a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Demituve metiv le'ame, from the good he is gifting to his people. So Amar, the response was, Shma mino es ratzon hi mi boy rachame. This is an eitz ratzon, and we should start davening, and then instantly boy rachame v'asi mitra. So again, they were tapped into a whole nother level. They knew how to identify Eis Ratzon. It just was hard to relate to, hard to understand. There was a person who was chayiv nagda. Nagda in Aramaic means lashes. He was chayiv malkos in the bezdin of Rava. Mishum deba al kusis, because he had tash mishamita with a kusis. L'chora, reference to a regular non-Jew. Nagde Rava. So Rava gave him lashes, and unfortunately, umis. Now, normally the way that it worked in bezdin is that they would be very careful with their lashes. They would check the They would check the perpetrator throughout the lashes to make sure that he was safe. But okay, they followed halacha properly, but unfortunately this person died. At that time, Ishtama Milsa Be Shvur Malka, the kingdom of Shvur Malka, heard about what happened and that this person died under Rava's watch. Totally lost my spot. Here you go. They wanted to cause problems for Rava. What's he doing? He doesn't have the right to kill people. He's not the king. I'm the king. So Amra Le Ifra Hormes Ime de Shvur Malka, the mother of Shvur Malka, her name was Ifra Hormes. She said, Lebra to her son, Lo Le Havelach Esek Dvarim Bahada Yehudai. Don't mess with the Jews. Why not? Because halavai to kolman de boyan mimaraihu yoivlahu. Because whatever they ask for from their master, capital M, that is what they get. Amar la maihi. What does that mean? What are you referring to? So she said, Ba'un rachme va'asi mitra. They can daven for rain, and the rain shows up. So Amar la, the king says to his mother, if Hormes, Amar la. Hahu mishum dezimna demitro. Yeah, it's real cute when it's rainy season to daven for rain and then it rains. That's not really much of a raya that you're such a good davener. You think these guys are all impressive? Bring me one, and let's say if they can pull it off in the middle of June. Because in that climate, it never happened. They sent for Rava, and Rava shows up. She said to him, focus your energies, and I want you to daven for rain right here in front of the king. He tried, he davened, the rain didn't come. Because we already saw that Rava was less than Rabbi Yehuda. That was a story we saw on the top of this page, bottom of the previous page. And he quotes a pasuk. Elokim be'oznenu shamanu avosenu sipru lanu po'al pa'al to be mem b'mei kedem. That Hashem, you should be listening to your forefathers, and you told us all these great things you can do. So the anu, however, we've never seen it. On the spot, asemitra, the shafach marzeve de tzipore lediglas. It was unbelievable. The water levels were so high that it brought all of their, it basically flooded their neighborhood until the diglas, until the Tigris. So asa avua, his father showed up. Rava's father showed up. So Rava's father showed up in a dream. That was not right. You should not have done this. That you should that you should be matriach HaKadosh Baruch Hu like this. What does all of this mean? Be matriach HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Did you just hear this Gemara?
Not this exact one, but there are other Gemaras that are similar to it. We'll see in a moment that it's not exactly the same. But anyways, the Gemara says 15 lines or so from the bottom, Amar Le, Shani Duchtech, you should move your place, a reference to his physical bed, because what Rava's father was concerned about is that he would have some enemies in the Shadim world, and it's just not a good behavior. Shani Duchtech, he moved his bed. Lamachar, in the morning, Ashkeche, Demir Shampurya Besakini, they found that his bed had stab marks in it, some knife marks in it, that the Shadim tried to kill him.
Do we have to be worried about that now?
Shadim? Seemingly not. I mean, that depends. We had a mice here in the neighborhood. Yeah, we're matriach Hashem. That I'm asking. We're matriach all the time. It does seem that there's a chakira to be made. You can ask Hashem for things that are within reason, that are not nisim per se, that are not open miracles. You're not asking for rain in July in Israel, right? That would be much more. Yeah. So that's what it seems like. And also, like, I love all of us, but none of us are on the level where we can ask for these things and they just happen. Like, like that. That's not, we're not like that. Tells the Gemara another story close to the bottom of the page. We're getting there. We're going to stop on the top of the next Amud, about 8 or 9 lines down. Rav Papa Gazer Taanis Sevelo Asamitra. He tried to have a fast day, no rain, didn't work. Chalash libe, and he was very sad. So what did he do when he was very sad? He felt weak. So Sarah Pinka de Daisa. He actually took a spoonful of some type of grain, some oatmeal, whatever it was. Ubay Rachame. So that, and then he davened. He figured, I'll eat a little bit. It should help me have a little more chizuk. Below Asamitra. It's a great sugya in halacha. Can you eat before davening? The poskim do write about coffee and tea, those kinds of things, that they're not unreasonable, maybe less sugar, whatever the case may be. Food is a whole different ballgame, and the food is part of a halachic discussion of lo sochlu al adam. It's not appropriate for a person to eat when they still have to daven over their own lives. So if a person's going to eat before davening, it shows that you're misprioritized, and you should be focused otherwise. Some of the Hasidic poskim say, okay, but if it's going to help your davening, then that's a whole different ballgame. If you're sick, nothing to talk about. Anyways, that's what he did. So he was by Rachme v'lo asimitra.
I believe the line is, it's better to eat to daven than daven to eat.
It's better to eat to daven. Yes, I hear that. Nice. But most of the Litvaks are not. Most Litvaks don't. You're a chassid.
You were with Hasidic Tish last night?
No.
I saw you. You were there.
Oh, I was there for like 60 seconds. I didn't even take a don't. Is there a pause button on here? Omerli Rav Nachman bar Ushpazti Isarif Mar Pincha Charisi the daisa. Had you eaten another spoonful of your daisa, everything would have been fine. Asi Mitra, he was making fun of him. So then Ichsav, he got embarrassed. And then Asa Mitra. So he pushed him to the point where he embarrassed him a little bit. That's a good shaila. Are you allowed to embarrass someone in order to bring about a halachic result or a certain mitzias result? That's a great shaila. Of course, not bifar hesya, but what if it's one-on-one? Bifar hesya, it's a great shaila. It's a great shot. I don't know what the answer is, but this can't be in public. The Gemara in Sota says that if you're malbim pnei chaver barabim, and Tosfos there writes that really it's one of the Eharig Valyavors, it's just not written b'ksav. That's a very strong shita. Not everybody agrees with it l'maisa and psak, but Tosfos does write the shita Maseches Sota that if you are mevayish someone barabim, it's Eharig Valyavor. Would you imagine? Go stand up in front of the shul and embarrass someone in shul, or take a bullet. So according to the basic reading of Tosfos, that is your life is over. But we don't paskin that way. Ladina, apparently, a friend of mine in the OU wrote a whole article on this. He was been like off the rails about it. Apparently we don't paskin that way. I asked a local Orthodox rabbi. I hope it never comes up. Says the Gemara, 10-12 lines from the bottom. Rav Chanina ben Dosa, famous personality. He was walking on the way, and Asamitra was raining while he was walking. This story we've heard before. Everyone's sitting pleasantly at home. I'm the only one on the road. Come on, it's raining. Says Gemara, Pasak Mitra, no problem. It's like a perfect umbrella, like, excuse me, I'm out here. And then it stopped raining for Chanina. Kimata lebesi, when he got home, Amar lafana ribono shel kol olam kulat bitzar. Everybody wants the rain. I'm home now. V'Chanina ben nachas. What is going on here? Okay, so Asa Mitra, the rain started coming again. Amar Rav Yosef, considering Rav Chanina's stature with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, my ahanyulates lucid the Kohen Gadol. How powerful can it be? The prayer of the Kohen Gadol legabe up against Rav Chanina ben Dosa. What was the prayer of the Kohen Gadol? So this we saw in another Masechah. Was it Maseches Yuma somewhere? Yep, Maseches Yuma, Daf Nun Gimel, it says. So what was the story there? It says the Gemara Ditznan, 8 lines from the bottom. After the Kohen Gadol would come out from doing the Avodah Lifnai V'Lifnim, he'd be in the Heichal area outside the Kodesh, but still in the Heichal. And in the Beis Hachitzon, which is what it was referred to, we'd say a prayer. My Matzle, what was the prayer? Ravin Bar Ada v'Rava Bar Ada Damrei Tarvai Mishmed Rabbi Yehuda. Here's what his prayer was. It should be a year that is a year filled with rain and a year that's filled with heat. Interjects the Gemara, Shchuna Mal Yasahi. A very hot day. Nobody wants that. That's not fun. Adarabba, Griusahi, that's considered a negative. Ella says the Gemara, you're right. Let me re-explain it. Shchuna, if it happens to be a very, very hot year, Tehegeshuma, Utlula. It should be a year of rain and it should be a year of dew, that there's enough water to offset the hot temperature so the crops can grow well. And what's the conclusion of the bracha? We don't want to have people who are walking down the road davening for the rain to stop, and it stops. Yet Chanina is more powerful than the Kohen Gadol. Says the Gemara, Rav Acha Berei de Rav Mesayim Mishmed Rav Yehuda Lo Yade Avid Shultan Mid Beis Yehuda, that there shouldn't be a ruler from Beis Yehuda. Amcha Yisrael Tzrichen Lisparnei Semizeh. What? Oh, what does that mean? What's Zos Chanukah? Oh, Beis Chashmonai, you're talking about. Oh, yeah. Oh, from the Beis Yehuda. And that the Jewish people, they should not need to get parnasa from each other or from other nations. Last story for the day. Amar Yehuda Marab b'chol yom v'yom bas kol yotzes v'omra kol ha'olam kulo nizam b'shvil chanina b'ni. Everyone in the whole world should be, there's a baskol about Omer's. The whole world should be nizon bishvil just for Chanina B'ni. The Chanina B'ni, what did he eat? Dayo b'kav cheruvin erev Shabbos. He ate a very small amount of food. It's kind of like in the genre of pas b'melach tochal be'al ha'aretz tzishan. He didn't eat a lot. So Havaragila debisu lemichma tenura komale de Shabbos. So they were totally destitute, no money, almost no money. And but every week she didn't want to be embarrassed, his wife, so she would always run the oven. She put in a little bit of wood, it would run the oven, and some smoke would come out. Everybody would think that she's baking like everybody else. With Shadya Aktarta, she'd put in some smoke, mishum kisufa, top of chaf hamid aleph, so that she wouldn't be embarrassed. Says Rashi, was embarrassed about what? About what? Ibrahim Mascha mishum kisufa, shahayu shecheno seha ofos isa lechavot Shabbos, v'hi eina osa klum. She had nothing to cook. Anyway, she had a bad neighbor. Havalahach shivavta bishta. She had a very bad neighbor. Amra michti. Let me see what's going on over there by the house of whose house was it? Rav V'chinina ben Dosa. Thank you. It says the Gemara, Amra michti yodana de les lehu v'lomidi. I know they don't have any money. My kulahai. Where's all the smoke coming from? So it says the Gemara, Azla v'tarfa abava. She goes over. Hey, what's going on in your house? I know you're broke. What's going on there? Of course, she was embarrassed because she didn't have anything. Va'ayla le'inderona, and she went into a back room in her house. Is avid lanisa, as the neighbor walked in, this bad neighbor, a miracle happened. She saw it was filled with bread. The agna malelisha, and she saw that there was a bowl that was filled with kneaded dough. She didn't have any of this when she walked in. Amra la planisa. That's his wife. He says, Isa masa, go get that flat, like the thing we kind of view, the flat board that goes under a pizza. So their bread was stuck on the side. They needed something to separate Redias Apas from the Gemara Maseches Shabbos. That Sugan Daf Dalet, are you allowed to do Redias Apas for other people? If someone puts in bread on Shabbos and it's still dough, are you allowed to do an Isser Derabanan to prevent your friend from triggering an Isser Doraisa? It's a good shaila as well. Anyways, go get this tool because the kacharich lachmech, your bread is going to burn. Amar la, that's what I was doing. Af ana lahachi ayel. What does that mean? We just said she was embarrassed. So says the Gemara, Tana af hi lahavi marda. She was embarrassed, but she went to go get the marda. She went to go get the tool to scrape it off the sides because nichnasa. She went into that back room to get it. These are not normal couples, right? We're talking about people who are they could control the way the world turns. Very, very powerful. We'll stop right here, 7-8 lines down, second of the wide lines, of the middle width lines. We'll pick up tomorrow morning at around 7:05, right after the morning shacharis. Wishing you all a beautiful night.